When the German infantry attacked, they were led by 3 armored vehicles. They were called tanks, but I think they were what they called the Stooge 3. And the battery commander took me and another fellow named Montanari, and he said, take that bazooka and those 6 rounds and go up there on the road and dig in, because they're coming from that way.
What artillery was that? I mean, what?
The 105?
105?
Yeah, 105.
Yeah, that was what I had.
Well, you know, each Cav squadron had a troop of 105s. I had a recon platoon. I had 3 of these M8 armored cars, like this one over here, with the 37 millimeter coax 30 and a 50. And I had 2 half-tracks with 60 millimeter mortars, but they also had 2 50s. The Germans didn't like the 50s.
No, they didn't.
That was a great gun.
Yeah, it really was.
My Jeep just had a grease gun mounted in front. I'm Mike Levin.
I'm Douglas Dillard.
I'm Alfred Shehab.
I'm John Schaffner.
I was born in a small village in Nebraska.
I see you found
I'm a product of the Depression period.
box of my things, infantry's tanks and smoldering airplane wings.
I found myself on the high seas, headed for Battle of the Bulge.
These old pictures are cool, tell me some stories. Was it like the old war movies? Sit down, son, let me fill you
The
in.
early morning of the 16th, when the shelling began.
Where to begin? Let's start with the end. This black and white photo don't capture the skin.
You could see hundreds of
From the
Germans.
flash of a gun to a soldier who's done. Trust me, grandson, the war was in color.
Well, my battalion was different. It was entered the Bulge in a different manner, but when we were in France and Italy, we had 98 continuous days on the line, so the guys were pretty well battle experienced. About 2 o'clock in the morning on the 17th, we were called, the 17th, we're called in the orderly room. I was a sergeant then, communications sergeant for Company A. And the company commander said, the front line, no one knows where it is. The Germans made a breakthrough, get ready. Go draw your basic load after Reveille. The SS had already encircled part of Bastogne and they cut the road, so we couldn't proceed on that order, so we had to turn the convoy around and take a circuitous route to Vermont, where the 82nd had set up their headquarters. So we get in there that night, in the early evening, spend the night in the barns, and next day get orders to go up to between Spa and Malmedy, because the 30th ID had committed all their forces. They had no reserve in the division. So we get up there and dig in behind, I think it was 117th Infantry, and get ready on Christmas Eve to attack Stavelot. So we're in the approach march to get in line to make the attack, and the order comes down, the attack has been canceled, go back to your foxhole. We didn't know it, but the big counterattack had been planned for the 3rd of January. So they wanted intelligence. So our whole battalion of over 600 paratroopers then, that night around 11 o'clock, infiltrated the German lines to about 4,000 meters at North Fontaine. And in the firefight, there were about 100 Germans killed, and we destroyed a U.S. half-track the Germans had captured from us. We arrived there on the 19th. During the 20th and 21st, we were reinforced with 4 half-tracks from the 203 Anti-Aircraft Battalion mounting the Quad 50s.
we dug in. And the night of the 21st, I was on the outpost again in a foxhole right in the ditch of the road leading to Houffalize with another GI, a guy named Ken Sewell. And that night about midnight, everything's deathly quiet. You could hear little bits of snow falling off the trees. It was that quiet. We're sitting there about midnight, we hear this swishing sound. What the heck is that? And we looked down the road, and coming in out of the mist and the fog was about a dozen Germans on bicycles. We had a daisy chain of mine across the roads, just about 10 yards away, I guess. And when they got to that, they stopped and they started talking, and we could definitely identify them as Germans. So I got on the telephone and just give it a little twist, like that, you know, I don't want to make any noise. They didn't know we were there. I didn't want them to know we were there. So Captain Brown was at the CP, and I told him we had about a dozen Germans in the road. He said, well, we have this M16 pointing down the road. He says, I'll fire my 45 one time, and you guys get down low in the hole as low as you can get, and we'll sweep the road with the M16. And he fired his 45, and we were hugging the ground, and the 450s took out that patrol, needless to say. So we jumped out of the foxhole, and I started running back across this field, and it was like the Road Runner. You ever see the Road Runner cartoon where there's Peter going like this? My feet were going like that, and my helmet bounced off, and I thought, oh, the hell with that. I kept running.
On the morning of the 3rd, we get in position to make the big counterattack to push the German forces west of the Somme River. And during that 3-day period, my battalion suffered enormous losses because our zone of attack was open. There were a few wooded areas, but most of it was open, so the German observers across the Somme at Vigny on the hill could see everything that we were doing. So we suffered a lot of intel losses, from artillery. And then on the 4th of January, after being caught in an open field with tank fire, my company commander was hit, and we had already down to one. We had 2 lieutenants left in the company, so we moved around to the flank, and early the next morning started to attack again because that afternoon when we started the attack across that field, you could see hundreds of Germans digging in on the forward slope of that hill. We didn't see the tank, it was behind a farmhouse. As we are moving forward, one element of our company is going off to the right front, and Lieutenant Durkee, who then was commanding this composite company of what we had left, noticed movement off to extreme right in it with German machine gun positions that were about to take this element under fire. So we ordered fixed bayonets, and my company then fixed bayonets, and we charged those positions, and we eliminated 3 machine gun positions and killed about 84 Germans in that mad minute. And as soon as that was over, then we reorganized, because as you know, when you lose ground, when the Germans lose ground, they immediately counterattack. Sure enough, the counterattack came, and we beat it off, and then moved the next day to a tree line overlooking Rushlandville, which was the end of our battalion's life, because on the 7th of January, after resting for a day and night, the battalion made that final attack, and my company encountered tremendous machine gun fire to attack that fortified village. That mad moment, I still see it. Yeah. And you can see the Germans sprawled out in their foxholes with the steam coming out of their mouth as their body temperature changed. So it's a scene from Apocalypse. You know, you never forget it.
Now I lay in my grave at age 21, long before you were born, before I bore a son. What good did it do? Well, hopefully for you, a world without war. a life full of color. Where to begin? Let's start with the end. This black and white photo never captured my skin. Once it was torn from an enemy thorn, straight through the core. The war was in color. Where to begin? Let's start with the end. This black and white photo never captured my skin. From the flash of a gun to a soldier who's done. Trust me, grandson, the war was in color. Trust me, grandson, the war was in color. Trust me, grandson, the war